Welcome to the Technical Explanation Show. I am your host, Bryce Roth, and this is episode number 13. In episode number 13, we speak with Buck Watkins. Buck is from Perryopolis, Pennsylvania. He is the head coach at Fraser High School, and when he's not doing that, he's running camps all throughout the United States, as well as being a wrestling mindset coach. In episode 13, we talk about Buck's career and what led him to Fraser High School, how he became so active on the camp scene, and some of the lessons that he's taken from his work with Wrestling Mindset and applied to his athletes and helped apply to the athletes he gets to coach and work with through camps in the off season. We hear Buck's wrestling story. We also hear his thoughts and inputs on how coaches, fans, and athletes could interact better or more positively with officials. We talk about ideas to get new officials and some of the reasons why it's so hard to come by new people that want to become a wrestling official. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy this show as much as I did making it. And here's episode 13.
All right, episode number 13 of the Technical Explanation Show. Excited, everyone, to do this one. I'm always excited, as you hopefully can tell. If not, I'm not doing my job. But today, we got Buck Watkins. He is the head wrestling coach at Fraser High School, and they are in Perryopolis, Pennsylvania. I confirmed that's the correct pronunciation. He is also a wrestling mindset coach too. Super excited to tell and hear Buck's wrestling story, and then talk a little bit about what wrestling mindset does and how maybe that can correlate with some things that we need to do in order to promote wrestling at all levels in the United States. So Buck, how's it going, man?
I'm doing very well, sir. Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. I know that, you've had a lot of big names on here, and, I look forward to talking about the sport of wrestling and how we can help grow it in every area and every aspect. We just had a very good showing at the Olympics and at the world, level. So, yeah, it's an exciting time to be part of the wrestling community, whether you're a fan, coach, referee, whatever it may be. It's just a very exciting time, and the use of social media is a very big part of that.
Yeah, and the thing about it, really, it's, if you think about it, is I think probably the kids that you coach, and a lot of kids, some of the kids I get to coach and around that area probably don't remember when we had one or two really big name guys. This was before women's wrestling, but we didn't have like 6 world beaters at every weight class, like where the expectation is to go in and beat whatever Rush was calling them themselves that week. So it's a great time to be a wrestling fan, like you said. And yeah, so and you're right, man. I'm just getting back to my normal sleeping schedule because I'm not on Oslo time. I don't know about you, but
yeah, no, I understand. I watched a little bit of it. Again, that's the thing with social media. You can pick something up the very next day, or you can record it on your TV. Back in the day, you couldn't do that. Heck, you might not even catch it on TV or on the internet anywhere. Especially dial up. or you'd have to message somebody on AOL Instant Messenger. Kids don't have that these days. They
thank God.
Got Facebook Messenger.
Could you imagine how many times that modem sound would go off every single day if kids had to use AOL to get on Facebook? Oh, that'd be annoying. All right, anyhow. So let's dive right in, man. You're a wrestling coach. You work with and for a company that works with wrestlers, some of the highest level athletes. I think Nato's someone, right? Nathan Thomas Hello.
I think there's some type of involvement there. I don't know exactly. I can't,
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, never mind. So where does your wrestling story begin, specifically geographically? Where were you born and raised?
I was born in a little small town here. But so Pennsylvania is kind of broken up a little different because we're a Commonwealth, okay? So I live in a small little town called Armburst, but above us is what they call a township called Hempfield Township. So we all go to one high school. It's broken up with small little towns. and we have a pretty big high school. We're a 6A school, which is the largest classification in football in the state of Pennsylvania. And I started wrestling there at the age of 4.
Okay.
And I wrestled all through high school. And then I went to college at Seton Hill University. I wrestled all 4 years there. And then just miraculously, okay, I've never been one to take a risk or a chance. And I was getting ready to graduate college. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to coach. And I thought I would give it a shot. So I sent my resume and emailed it to a school that was starting men and women's wrestling. Now I'm in the state of Pennsylvania. This is 2010. And, you know, there had been women's wrestlers at this point, but, you know, it's still kind of new, right? And so I sent my resume, went down there, interviewed, and I was a grad assistant at Wayland Baptist University. It's where I got my master's degree as well. And I got to coach 2 years at the college level. Great experience, not just from the men's side, but again, this is my first time ever truly being around women's wrestling. And women's wrestling, I think, in Texas had been sanctioned in high school at that point in like 99 or 2000, somewhere in there. So they're 10 years in the game. You know, there's like 100 and some high schools. And you never realize, like, people are like, at this time, Oklahoma City, they had like everybody. They were at the top. They had won like 4 or 5 national team titles at the NWCA at this point. I mean, when you recruit against them, it was going to be tough. Hey, Oklahoma City want, you know, girls wrestling versus, hey, we're a new program. What can we offer you, you know? And then my second year, Tamara Mensah signs with us. She becomes a part of the Wayland Baptist wrestling team. And that's kind of when the tide changed, I feel, for, you know, women's wrestling there. You know, in 2000, that was my second year, 2012. It was the most All-Americans we ever had in a season. I think there was like 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And she ended up taking 3rd that year. She had All-American, but at that point, you could tell, you know, like some people walk on a wrestling mat or walk on a baseball field. You're just like, there's something special about them. You know, you talk to minor league guys who play in the minors, you know, they're very high level. They're very good. But there's just something about a guy or a woman, and they just got it. And so she has had it. She had all the tools. I think she started wrestling in like 9th or 10th grade, and she was 2-time Texas state champ, just like boom. I mean, phenomenal athlete, great personality, hard worker, just all the right tools that you want in an athlete, just on point. And obviously, you know, she capped that off, you know, winning a Olympic gold this year and come back and fight bronze. But that was back in 2012. I knew, me personally, I told her at one point that she was going to be Olympian someday. She has had it. I think that's what she wanted to be, but she didn't quite believe it yet. And I think about 2 or 3 years later is when it really clicked for her. Like, yep. I'm going to be this.
I was just thinking something's got to click. Like you can have that I'll call it swagger when you walk on the baseball field or on the mat and step on the mat, right? But still, until that one thing that falls into place in your head, you know what I mean? And you believe in yourself, then.
But here's the other thing. As a coach, you know, you got to put that seed in the ground. And you might see that seed grow into a tree, and you might not. But it is your job to plant that seed. Now, obviously, after 2012, you know, I left. And I'm not saying that, you know, all of because, you know, people will say, well, did you do anything? No. I got to be around her for a year, and there's been other athletes along the way that I've been around that I was able to plant that seed in their ear. Like, hey, look, you can do this, or hey, I believe you can do this. And sometimes you'll be there and sometimes you won't. But it's your job as a coach, as an athlete, as a parent. It is your job to plant that seed in every individual that you meet. If you don't, then you're not doing your job. You're not doing what you've been called to do. You're limiting your purpose. And when you put a limit on your purpose, you limit your potential. And that is the biggest thing that I see in kids and adults, is that they've limited, they put limits on their purpose and potential. And, that's why I think it's important to have those conversations about goal setting and developing clarity and how to control aggression and how to develop routines. All those things play into a part of you reaching your potential, because once you find your purpose and then you put all those things together, it's limitless. And that's why it's important for me as a wrestling mindset coach, to be able to do that.
Dude, there's a lot to unpack there, because I got questions. I want to follow up on some of it. That's good stuff. But first thing, before I like Tarantino it here, start at the beginning, go back, whatever. I hope I get this right. Gosh, it's been like a year, but like, Cliff Retwa, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, good dude, solid dude. I've only got to meet him once, but I was impressed. I think it was at his place, compound, and like he's given a camp, and I think it's like the end of one of the days, so kids, he worked them out because Cliff works them out, and I think it's him, and he's telling this story that he heard from somewhere else about there's a certain kind of bamboo that you plant, and like for an extended amount of time, okay, you have to water it. You have to water it every single day at the same time, right? And this, like, let's just say 3 months. It could be a year, it could be whatever. I don't want to get too wrong, right? So let's say 3 months, you have to water it every day at 12:30, okay? And it will not grow for 3 months. You won't see a sprout. You won't see anything. But on that 90th day, it'll grow 30 feet, right? So it's like, when I heard that, I was like, boom, like, that's what life's about, right? Like, you make a decision to do something, right? And you put in the work, even though you're not seeing any results at all. But at some point, that result's going to happen, and it's going to be this huge bamboo that you never even knew you're going to have. Does that make sense?
Correct. Absolutely.
I hope it's him, but.
And it goes back to this, what I tell my what I tell to my wrestlers sometimes, I see parents get frustrated. We're doing all these camps. It's just not clicking. All it's going to take for a lot of times for a person to get to that next level is one good win. And I'm not talking about like a dominant win. I'm not talking about a win that's, that should happen. This is going to be a dogfight victory. It's got to be a match, maybe somebody you wrestled that you've never beaten, or it might be the kid that's number one in the country, and you just find a way to grind it out and get the job done. And then your confidence level boosts, and it changes your life. I don't think people realize that. I try to tell kids that all the time. You don't know how much your life changes when you get on that podium, whether it's at the state tournament, or whether you become an All-American, or whether you become a national champ. Your life changes. People do like, oh, they don't look at that. Absolutely. When you walk into a job interview and you say 2-time All-American, there's a little bit of extra put on your resume. There's something to be said about a person that becomes that. And the other thing is with me, obviously I travel and do wrestling camps, right?
Yep.
So I started out with 2 wrestling camps. And, I kept plugging away. Now I'm doing between 7 to 10 a year. But people don't realize how hard it's been to get wrestling camps. For people to trust me and know that I'm showing good technique, that I'm going to be good with kids, that I can have an impact. Why? Because I don't have state champ in front of my name. I don't have All-American in front of my name. I don't have national champ or Olympic world team member. And, there's times where I've reached out and been turned down. I can't tell you how many emails I've been turned down by. But you keep plugging away. I got 7 more states to go. 7.
Dude, this is the next section. So I want to put a pin in that one because I want to talk about that because you really do grind. So we're going to get to that. Is that okay with you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I want to circle back. Commonwealth. Pennsylvania's Commonwealth. All right. I'm a geek, but not a smart geek. Can you name one other state that's a Commonwealth?
I'm not off the top of my head. And
me neither, but it was that trivia on Thursday.
That's sad because I'm a history teacher.
No, it was. I only know because we got the question wrong. I go to a trivia every week. Kentucky's one. That's the only one I can tell you. I think there's 6. You teach history?
I think. Huh?
You teach history?
Yes. So that's
at Fraser.
Right? I'm associate. No.
Okay.
Right now, I'm a substitute. Right now, it's hard to get a permanent position here in the state of Pennsylvania. Yeah. By the way, for anybody listening to this, a lot of schools in the state of Pennsylvania pay very well, and they have very good benefits and health insurance.
You know what? I know that actually firsthand because my dad lived in Easton for a year, and my mom's an educator, and she had a job there. He ended up leaving Easton and come back to Ohio, thank goodness. But yeah, I was in Easton for a year, so you could drive 5 minutes.
Man, you imagine how good you would have been at wrestling if you stayed at Easton.
This is after my competing days, and there's no salvaging that, buddy. That's why I talk about wrestling. I don't do it. Hey, Seton Hall, what'd you study there?
At Seton Hill.
Oh, Seton Hill, sorry. Seton Hill.
So I studied political.
Oh, poli-sci.
I studied. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then your master's degree, was that poli-sci too?
No, my master's degree is a Master of Education.
Oh, that makes sense.
For my,
Gotcha. Okay. Hey, women's wrestling. You were around it. You got to be around Tamara, which you mentioned a lot of her great qualities, but that smile is pretty awesome too. And then what she did with the money that she got too, like that says a lot about, right? Didn't she buy her mom a food truck?
Right.
Yeah, cool. All right, making sure I got that right. But what did you learn in your time around women's wrestling, like before it was as big as it is now? Like, what are some things that you learned right away that you can take today now? And if you have a camp and some young ladies show up, like, what are things that you learned there that you're grateful for that experience?
I'll tell you what, you learn a lot. You learn to be more patient. You learn patience. You learn how to become more technical. This is just me. I noticed that at camps and being around women's wrestling, girls ask more questions, and so you got to be more detailed. And you can be, because their questions go more in depth. This is just me from my experience being at camps. Most boys are like, "Hey, can you show that again?" and then a girl will be like, or girl woman will be like, hey, why did you place your hand here? Or what happens when this happens or this goes? And so it makes you become very more technical. It makes you become a better coach, to be honest with you, especially when you start teaching younger kids. It's really helped me become a better coach in teaching youth wrestling because of my experience being around women's wrestling.
Let me ask you this. Sorry, I cut you off. Do you find that across the board, kind of with the young ladies and women and girls, that like just generally they ask more detailed questions, or is it like, because I mean, let's face, I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking out loud here. It's newer for girls, right? The opportunity hasn't been there, right? So in one of our shows, we had Vanessa Oswalt on, and she's wrestled on the senior world's team, the first one ever. She was training in Colorado Springs. I think she has a win over Helen Maroulos too, I'm pretty sure. But anyhow, she was talking about how she made a transition from wrestling in college, one of the earlier programs, to coaching. And she said the same thing, that the girls would ask more questions, they're in more detail and everything. And then she had to remind herself that some of these girls have never wrestled. They haven't grown up on a mat like she did. So they're not like, right now they're learning like the ropes, right? They're learning everything, not just how to hit a single leg. They're like learning like, this is a different position, So I guess my original question was, is it across the board, or do you think it has something to do with lack of opportunities, and maybe that'll change hopefully with time and with the growth that we're seeing?
Well, here's the thing. During my time and at Wayland, you had a lot of girls who just started wrestling in high school. Okay. And, they had success, and, they had gone to Fargo, had success. It wasn't, but now you have a change, because I know that there's a little girls wrestling club out east in Pennsylvania. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but they have like 30 or 40 elementary school girls in the program. That there is a game changer, because they're going to grow up into the lifestyle. And, it's very rare. The young lady from Ohio, Lauren, if I say her last name correctly, she's sponsored by Barbarian.
Oh, Levine.
Lauren
Levine. She's a Barbarian athlete.
Yeah, she lives the lifestyle inside and out.
She is a monster, dude. I would no way, dude. No, I don't want that grip. No.
She has, she's very technical. If you ever see her teach, she's gonna be a heck of a women's wrestling coach someday.
And there's going to be a lot of those opportunities in the not too distant future. I mean, I think there's 3 or 4 D1 programs right now. Since I launched theirs, 3 others have come out of the woodwork.
Correct. So, you're going to see more of those types of girls come through here in the next 10 years. That grew up.
I'm here.
That grew up on the wrestling mat.
Yeah,
that's right. They grew up on the wrestling mat. They live the lifestyle. They go to tournaments on the weekend. They're grinding all the time. Because back in like the early 2000s, you just had girls who wrestled in high school, first year. Very few ever grew up on the wrestling mat. But now you're starting to cycle through it. And the other thing is too, and this is great, is you're having more women wrestling coaches. That's huge.
Oh, dude, it's huge. So I had this conversation with Vanessa, Brian, and Mark Neiman, and think about it. And here's what they told me. They said, their first year they wanted to start. Ohio was having a girls' state tournament. Okay, they've had 2 now because 1 year was COVID. So this has been a thing for like 3 years, and 2 years and 1 asterisk year. They said, when they first went and they're like, hey, come down, wrestle. This is before COVID, right? We'll put you in kind of sections And if we have enough girls, you'll wrestle with girls, but you might have to wrestle with the boys too, right? This is some of the largest schools in Ohio. They're all in Columbus. That's our capital here. So, if anyone's going to have the bodies and the athletes, it's going to be them. They're like 5-6 people year one, right? The next year, they put their heads together and they figured out, I think if we could just get girls to be able to have opportunities to wrestle with girls, that might help. Wouldn't you know? That's a great idea, right? They do it. They got like 25 kids on their team. Brand new team. So I'll say this and I'll stop. Well, actually, two things. Until women or young girls can see another woman and be like, they did that, I could do that, they're not going to try to do that thing. Because if you don't see it, like, what makes you believe, right? Unless you just have some kind of unfaltering faith, like, you know what I mean? And sure, there are some, I mean, there's girls that have won matches at the state tournament in Ohio, which I believe is one of the, it's not PA. I'm not saying that, but it's a tough tournament,
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
Had their first in the boys tournament, first girl to ever place the state tournament last year. So now, honestly, last thing on that one, look up Marysville Wrestling and Olentangy Orange Wrestling. To your point with the Biddy Club, they just started their first all-girl Biddy Club. I think it's called the Spark. I think they have like 24 kids. So when you build a Biddy program, that's the only way to build sustained success, in my opinion. And that's, I think, what you're saying.
Can't build a house without a foundation.
You got to need a basement for, you need a foundation before you can start building on it. So, all right, I want to switch topics. Let's talk about locking hands season, AKA freestyle season. That's when you are grinding. So camp season, when does that start from you and when does it run till?
I try to start about late April, early May, and it runs usually till about October. Once in a while, I'll catch something before the season starts on a weekend. If a coach wants personalized instruction or a guy wants a personalized instruction with his kid.
A couple more weeks.
A lot of time. Yeah, I mean, I'm off right now. I haven't had a camp in a long time, just because I've been busy. My son's getting ready to turn 1. He's
Luca,
walking.
right?
Yeah, before he turns 1. He's walking before he turns 1. It's I didn't even.
He's like his dad. He likes to grind, man. You better be careful. He's gonna be running clinics.
No. You know what's funny is it's like it was April 2015. I was teaching in North Carolina at the time at a high school, and
where at?
It's called West Stokes High School.
Okay.
It's in Stokes County. Very, very nice high school. Small little town, rural.
Was it beautiful? A lot of like hills and mountains and stuff.
Yeah, I lived right outside of Pilot Mountain, just going towards there. And,
how far is Asheville from there?
About 3 hours.
Oh, okay. I don't know geography.
Yeah. So I sit there and I get on Instagram. I started sending out messages to get to people, and 2 people responded back. Hey, we'd like to have you. One was in Fountain, Colorado, near Colorado Springs. And the other place was Rain, Louisiana. It's right outside of Lafayette. It's the frog capital of the world.
Frog capital of the world, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that? Like, I mean, most
I don't know. I don't know. Everywhere you go, they have little frog structures, everything.
Okay.
And,
hey, if you're going to be known for something, I mean, might as well stand out.
Yeah. And, but it's right outside of Lafayette. So it starts out with 2, and then it started growing ever since. In 2018, I drove probably over 35,000 miles and did about 17 camps.
What year?
Not that. This is like 2018.
Okay.
I
was driving.
I was driving at this point. So So this is the total perspective. So like people are like, I'll drive, fly. No, man. I drove the whole way out past Wyoming and drove the whole way back. I was on like a 4-week binge here. I was stopping everywhere, I'm trying to get as many places I can. It's at this point, and everybody's got a niche, something that they're, really into, something that they're very good at. And I always work with small towns, small little rural towns.
You do that on purpose because that's what you like, how you grew up, and like where
yeah,
you yeah.
How I grew up. It's what I'm comfortable. I feel that, I can help those kids the most. I feel that I can help those programs. I can help educate parents the most. I feel that there's always a sense of adventure when you go to those places, in my opinion.
Oh, and the food's the best too. Like, because I like to pick local places, and like in these small towns, dude, you can get some of the best meals. And they're not healthy, but they're good.
Oh, absolutely. It's like I've been going to Idaho every, the past 2 years, and got to go bear hunting.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, did you get one?
Dogs.
Hey, hold on.
This guy, I call him the dog whisperer.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Hey, start with I got to go bear hunting, and then go again because you broke up.
Okay.
Yep.
So I got to go bear hunting in a small little place in Idaho. Obviously, it's not small as far as like land and things like that, but it's a pretty small little town. It's not very big. And there's a guy by the name of Jake Painter. I call him the dog whisperer. He trains these dogs, and they track bears.
Are they black or brown?
And
bears?
You get up there, they're brown bears.
Okay.
So he trains these dogs. And it is incredible. They run for hours and miles. I've never seen anything like it. Really great experience. If you ever get a chance and you get to experience that, hunting bear with dogs, I highly recommend it. And here's the other thing about this, obviously I get to experience those things. And I get to go fishing a lot of times at these places. But the most important part to me is that I get to give back to the sport. I give back to the wrestling community, but also it helps build a better life for my son, because if he ever goes anywhere, he'll have an understanding of culture. He'll possibly know somebody. He'll feel comfortable everywhere he goes. How you pick a dot on a road map and you don't know what you're going into. You don't know what the culture's like. You don't know what to eat. And for me to educate him on that is very important, because when he gets to college and he might have a roommate from South Dakota, and he'll be like, hey, you like eating walleye, or you want some chislic, or hey, I'm from Philadelphia. Hey, you ever been to Geno's for, a Philly cheesesteak?
Dude.
Or
what's the other one, though? There's Geno's and there's another
for
one.
what?
For cheesesteak.
Oh, I can't remember that. I can't remember the other.
I'm sorry. You said food and
no.
Good.
Yeah. No. Understandable. But it's like, when you go to Texas and he'll be like, hey, do you know anything about brisket? Those types of things. You know what I mean? It's important to understand culture to me.
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, just relating to people can get you so far in life. Just being able to like kind of put yourself maybe in one shoe if you're lucky, right? I think that's one of the cool things, like even before the show, like with wrestling, is I can talk to someone completely different background, but I already know like we've got one thing in common. It doesn't matter if they're junior high conference champ, as Greg Warren would say, the Afton quadrangular champ, or you know, Logan Stieber. It doesn't matter. Like we have something in common. We can get kind of the other stuff out of the way, and we can just talk. You know, so that's cool. I agree with you, man. That's awesome. That's gonna be some cool stuff for Luca. And I'm sure you'll do that with him soon when he gets a little bit older. So that's neat. It's a good perspective to have. All right.
Yeah, if he's tough enough, that's waiting to be seen.
So let's talk about wrestling mindset a little bit. How'd you get involved with that?
So they had an opening. I spoke to Jeff and Gene about, my philosophy and everything like that. And it kind of meshed well together. And that's been growing as well. Not only for myself, but the company. They've expanded into other sports as well as academics. It goes back to this quote, it's easier to build strong children than repair broken people. And, right now, I feel like more importantly than ever, having a strong mindset is absolutely necessary. You never realize the importance of it until you see an athlete who struggles mentally reach their potential at the end. And that's huge. I never thought about how important it is until I started reading. That's another thing that's very helpful for me as a coach, whether it's mindset or as just a wrestling coach in general, is reading and the importance of leadership. Without a strong leadership, you're not going to go very far. As they once said, there are no bad teams, only bad leadership. And, I don't, not wanting to toot my own horn, but when I first got to Fraser and Perryopolis, they didn't have one state champ in any sport, individual or team. And in 2017, when Thane Lawrence won that state title as a sophomore, and was the first person ever in the town. The school's been there since the 1930s, I believe. The 1930s, or 40s
probably,
or whatever.
It was probably like a WPA project, right? Probably if it was built around that time, like Workers' Progress Act. Probably.
Yeah. And, and so you walk in there was no WPL titles. There was, very few things to boast about.
Empty trophy cases, right? If trophy cases.
So the program starts out with 3 people, and now we're gonna have a full lineup for the first time. It looks like, first time in program history. I always tell people it takes about 5 years to really see the growth. Obviously some people can kickstart it faster depending, your situation and where you're at. But, we have a school where they graduate 90 to 100 kids. So there's about 400 kids, 5, maybe a little more, a little less in the whole entire school. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we're getting a whole bunch of kids, where you're able to keep building them at a faster rate. But at the same time, leadership made a difference. I told him I was there to win, and it didn't matter, who stepped on that mat. You got to be willing to go the distance. That's the huge. You got to have what I call like a gunfighter mentality. It's not about being the fastest. It's not about being the strongest. It's just about being the one who's willing. Because sometimes, you walk through life and you hear people talk about wanting to be a state champ or be a national champ, but most of them aren't willing. And I can attest to that.
Yeah, guilty.
Yeah, obviously, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it goes back to that. People are like, oh, that he wants to be a state champ. Yeah, there's a lot of people that want. But it goes back to this. There's a lot of people who are wanting to win that state title, to win that national title, but wanting to prepare has to be twice as much. You're wanting to do that extra. You have to love that twice as much. You have to love preparing twice as much as you love winning, because you gotta be willing to get out of your comfort zone a lot. You gotta be willing to do things that nobody else is willing to do, and that's hard. Because you never realize how much preparation and goes into winning a national title. I can't fathom that, because I never was that. But you hear other people talk about it, and you pick up little tidbits. If you ever watched that documentary, Isaiah Martinez,
Imar
and Mark, yeah, Imar, and Coach Perry is on there. Mark Perry.
Yeah, dude. Listen, if you didn't believe him, everything that he said before, if you look at his performance as a coach at Worlds, so he brought who he coaches, right? 1 gold medal, 2 bronze. That's
absolutely
in 12 weight classes, right? So you got 6 men, 6 women. That's pretty darn good percent. So go ahead, sorry.
Right, and he made a point. You got to be willing to go in the dark place. And that man knew what it took. He's a 2-time national champ, or whatever, 4-time All-American. I could say that to a kid, and not necessarily is he gonna believe, him or her gonna necessarily believe me, because I've never been there. But coming from someone like that, you're gonna be like, this is what I've got to be willing to do. So for me, not only as a coach, a wrestling mindset coach, or a clinician, I got to prepare twice as much and do twice as much to get the same results out of a kid, because they got to trust me. They got to believe in me as much as I believe in them. And it's been a hard work. It's been a grind. And so that's the biggest difference between me and someone else.
Well, let me ask you this then. How long have you been doing Wrestling Mindset now?
Since 2017. I started in April.
Okay. Has that made you grow as a coach, dad, or a person? And if it has, can you give me maybe some examples?
Oh, absolutely. It made me grow. It has made me grown as a coach, because I'm around so many different types of individuals that I know not every kid's the same. Not every kid comes from a Pennsylvania wrestling culture where they can go to club all the time. Not every kid has the opportunity to wrestle at a club that's owned by David Taylor type of resource there. Not every kid comes from the same type of home. Not every kid learns the same. It's done a tremendous job, not only, and as a dad too. I'm more prepared. I'm willing to, I'll tell you what, I ask more questions. Being a first-time dad, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? We go to the doctor's office. I've taken him a few times on my own. That's an adventure in itself. Not that it didn't go well or anything.
No, I know it. I can't imagine you having a little one trying to.
I'll be honest with you. When I'm going on these things on my own, just me and him, I think of every worst case possible scenario, and it's awful. Like I shouldn't think of those things, but I do. And I sit there and I'm like, well, this is what I'm going to do if this happens. If
Well,
this
think about
happens.
that though. Like, you're like a really positive guy. You know the importance of mindset, right? Can you imagine someone that doesn't kind of have those skills, like what they might feel like?
Yeah. I've never thought about, see, that's the other thing. I never thought about that either. Like I said, now that you mention it, I'm going to be thinking about, well, a lot of these dads don't do what I do. And, you know, they're not home as much as I am for a lot to be able to learn this stuff. Or, you know, some of the time you don't even realize what your son's capable of until you're around him. You know, I'm sitting there, I didn't even think nothing of it. We were out at a restaurant, and, you know, you put him in the booster seat. I just didn't even think of buckling down, you know, I didn't think anything. Next thing I know, he's about standing up in the booster, in the high chair. I'm like, oh no, like it never dawned on me. So you never know what your child's capable of until you're around them enough. And now I see he's capable a lot more than I give him credit for. And so I'm always aware of that. I'm always aware, well, he can jump out of this, or he'll try to climb this, or he'll throw this, or, you know, those types of things. And I think when you're a parent and you don't spend enough time with your children, you don't know what they're capable of, or things like that, and then you panic, and, you know, and things like that. It's a heck of a ride. It's you know, the nice thing about coaching, you can give those kids back. But I'm stuck with.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Like, I don't know, you can just tell how excited you are. Obviously, you love your son, but when you talk there, you lit up. So that's pretty cool, man. It's cool to see. Thanks. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about kind of what you do. You know, obviously as a coach, as a wrestling mindset coach as well, and then kind of what I'm trying to do is promote officiating. You know, getting more officials, because from what I'm hearing, you know, I think I've got only a few states under my belt so far, and work on changing that. But what I'm hearing, situation as far as the official shortage in Ohio is not a unique one to the state of Ohio. I don't believe it is to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I know it's not for several other states. So, you know, let's say just a hypothetical situation from mindset coach perspective. If you had the opportunity, right, and you saw that maybe a coach or a parent could be being detrimental to their child, is growth in the sport of wrestling by how they treat officials, or, you know, interact with officials, like, and you had to have that conversation. Like, your athletic director says, hey, Buck, you know, this parent is sitting next to the mat, they're chirping the official, it's the third time it's happened. How do you handle that? What are something you would say, you know, to try to get them to maybe change their behavior or their perspective on things?
You know, it's kind of like, you know, what we talked about before we started recording this. You know, if you knew how powerful a positive, you know, thought was, you would never have a negative one. And I don't think people realize this too. You know, people go to work every day, and you either enjoy your boss and love your work, or you dislike your boss and hate your job.
Okay? And 80% of your life is spent at work.
Right. A lot of it is, correct?
Yep.
So how would they like it if that person stood next to their job every minute, picking apart everything that they do, whether it's right or wrong? I guarantee you that their answer would be like, no, I'm not letting them do that to me. So why would you do that to someone else? And, you know, there's anytime that humans are in something, when humans participate in something, there's always margin for human error. You know, there's the old saying, measure twice, cut once, right? So look at this way. Prime example, okay? I'm reffing at iron sharpens iron. You know, it's a dual meet match. No big deal, right? At least I don't think so. Kids are there to get 10, 15 matches, dual meet. Well, this dual meet in particular is the final of the youth tournament. Okay.
No, I already know where this is going. This is going to be fun.
Okay. So the kid shoots a high crotch. Guy sits the corner, you know, it's in the rule book. If you hook the foot, you know, come over top, ref's supposed to give 2, right? So wrestler sits the corner, looks like he's going to hook the foot, doesn't hook the foot, time runs out. I don't give 2. I'm like, hey, you know, parents a little upset. Up at the top, okay? So we're down in the gym, right? So now situation changes. The other wrestler shoots a high crotch. The other kid sits the corner. This time, this kid hooks the foot. I give 2. Kid ends up losing. Now, nobody's wrestling for a college scholarship. You get a free singlet and you get a picture taken on the website, Facebook page, whatever, right? Now, these kids probably, I don't know, 9 to 12 years old, correct?
Yeah, 12 years. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. This parent, I'm not a certified referee. Parent runs down and gets in my face. I am not a certified referee. I have been around the sport of wrestling for over 20 years. I obviously have a good interpretation of the rules, okay? So there was a head referee, a guy that was certified there on the mat that was watching. And he went up to explain to the parent, hey, he made the right call, okay? Now, that guy didn't say anything to him, okay? You know, number one, he's certified, all these things, okay? But going into that, there's margin for human error. You know, it's like this too. You know, here's the other situation. Okay, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling coach. I'm watching Jordan Oliver take down Logan Stieber in the Edge. I'm calling 2.
Can you go there?
Hold on. No. Hold on. But my interpretation,
yeah,
I'm going 2. The other guy that's important makes the call. He says no 2. Now, let's say that same situation happens a year later. Does he make that same call? Who knows?
It's 50-50.
There's margin for human error. And you have to take it with a grain of salt. If you don't, you know, it's really true. Don't put it in a ref's hands, because a week later, who knows? I might have changed my call. I might have been maybe my girlfriend broke up with me and I'm having a bad day and I don't care. Or maybe somebody passed away and I'm just down in the dumps and I'm not even worried about it. You know, you don't know what a person goes throughout that day. You don't know what they're thinking at that very moment. You don't know if they're on the left side and they see an angle and you're on the right and you're, you know, referees miss locking hands all the time because they're not in position. But how fast can I get there?
Yeah. And what that comes down to, from at least from speaking with officials, is that comes down to, like, you can know the rules. You could know that, like, that book front and back and, like, verbatim. But if you don't have the mechanics to, like, you almost have to predict, like, okay, these guys are going to go to the mat and it's going to go one of 2 ways, right? The guy's going to sit the corner, or, you know, this is going to happen. I need to predict that next move so I can make the call for 2. You know what I mean? Or I need to be far enough away from the action, because a lot of young officials are too close. And that's when you're going to miss locking hands, because you don't have enough space to see the full movement, right? So your mechanics should be taking that. But, dude, everything you just said, you said it in different ways that no one's said it before, so I'm not going to even add to that. I appreciate that. That was way more than I expected. And I think it really just goes down to, like, at the very end, you said, like, you don't know what anyone's going through, and it costs.
But here's the thing, that comes from me being able to travel. That comes from me being in that situation. That comes from being in that situation, doing all these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It comes from that experience right there. Obviously, I'm not a certified referee. I was in a dual meet tournament at a iron sharpens iron. Nobody's winning a state title or getting a scholarship at this moment. And then as a wrestling fan, I'm in that situation watching a guy wrestle. And I've seen, and I've also been in a corner as a coach where referees have made around bad calls. And what am I supposed to do? Bobby Knight them and throw a chair? What does that do at that very moment? What does that say? What does that say about me?
What does that say about?
Yes, right. What kind of individuals is this guy building on his team?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, though, too. And we talked about this in one of the episodes. I know he said that. I got to learn the numbers better, I guess. I'll do that next. But the thing is everyone, not everyone, the majority of the people in a gymnasium where there's a wrestling competition going on are looking at the coach because they believe the coach knows the rules, right? The coach knows what he's doing, right? Unless they have, someone that maybe shouldn't be coaching, right? And then most of the team, you're with them every day. They believe you. They trust you. You've built those relationships, right? So when you stand up and, put your hands on your head or whatever it is, you don't have to throw a chair. Everyone sees that. And they respond the way that they think you're responding. And people's emotions travel really fast, especially in combined areas, right? So, like, you have to think, like, how I react to this what could that cause, right? Is it going to do more harm or more good? And should I just live to fight another day? Is it really worth it?
But you have to look at this too. I tell my wrestlers this, the very first thing that I say has nothing to do with wrestling in general, has nothing to do with technique, has nothing to do with anything. The first thing that they got to do is learn to control their emotions. The way things happen in a match, if you don't control your emotions, things can go very good or they can go very bad. So you got to be even keel. Like, you score a takedown in the last couple of seconds and you get too excited, all of a sudden the guy reverse you, and now your emotion goes the opposite direction. But at that point, if you would have controlled them, looked at the situation, got the breakdown, and just wrote them out for that last 5 seconds, you win the match. But instead, you got behind them, you kind of celebrated, the guy hit a switch, you lose by a point. And that changes the trajectory of your life. Your life can change in a matter of seconds, good or bad, depending on the choices that you make. And the same thing happens, with people who get into situations where the ref has made bad calls or hasn't, interpreted this way. It changes the trajectory of the match. It changes how you got to be willing to not put it in the referee's hands and be able to adapt. You got to pivot. You got to pivot and adapt. And for some people, that's easy. For some people, that's hard. And, it goes back to, what we talked about prior to recording this. You asked me if I had ever been in a situation as a coach. And, in the biggest match of that young man's life up to that point, in his senior year of state finals, there was some controversial calls. And, if anybody ever reads that article, he never once blames that referee. And that goes back to the importance of leadership, the importance of good parenting, and the importance, of being able to control your emotions. Because you hear a lot of people make excuses and put blame on others. And that's not what wrestling isn't meant to do that. Wrestling is not meant for you to put the blame on others. Wrestling is for you to learn how to own it. And the day you start to own it, you start to owning your success.
Rock on, dude. That's a good one. That's a good note to stop that conversation. So we just talked a little bit about kind of a negative aspect of how sometimes officials are treated. Sometimes, what's your most memorable positive interaction you've had? Either as a coach, a spectator, or a competitor, that involved like a wrestling official that you're like, man, that was pretty cool. That was special. You got one of those?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. In the past couple of years, I've had some referees come up and tell me, "Man, this is great what you're doing." In a time when programs are losing numbers, in a time where small rural schools are being looked over, people aren't reaching their potential. We're in the heart of wrestling in the WPIL, Western Pennsylvania. It don't get no tougher. And individuals have come out of Frazier since I took the head job in 2017. These kids know that they have the potential to win a Pennsylvania state title, have that potential to go wrestle in college.
And again, dude, just seeing someone that wore the same singlet as them and looking at that picture or that bracket in the hallway too, shows some little kid in your Beatty program, like, I don't have to leave Perryopolis in order to be on that wall, right? Like, nope, it's been done. I'll be the next one, right? That's powerful, man. You familiar with St. Ed's in Lakewood St. Ed's in Cleveland, Ohio?
Yeah, so we're gonna get hopefully a taste of one of their individuals. We'll go to Iron Man. I can't remember the young man's name. They have some tough wrestlers at every weight class. Obviously, yeah. But we see that competition. We might have an individual invited to the Ironman this year, so we'll be able to. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we'll be able to get a taste of that.
Well, there's a point to that though, and I'll tell you what it is. It's about brackets and banners, right? So I'm not gonna get the number, but it's in the mid-20s. Well, not anymore. They lost probably like 7 years ago to Wadsworth, who's in their same district, right? Anyhow, most team titles in the state of Ohio, legendary people that have gone through that program. And so, there's 15 weight classes in Ohio. Next year this year we're doing some goofy thing. But anyhow, when you win a state title there, and I think they have at least a handful of 4-timers, they hang a banner with your name up in their rafters. All right. Well, I can't remember how long it goes. Guy Seiko from Defense Soap was telling me the story this summer. It's really cool. And so he does their Beatty program. He's been doing it for over 2 decades. And at the beginning of the year, they know if someone wins state, which inevitably is going to happen, okay, that someone in the rafters, that banner has to go down in order to make room for them. So, because they don't have enough rafters. So every year they're like, okay, well, this guy wrestles 103. If he wins this year, then I'm taking down this guy. And they pick the number of the banner, and that's their thing. And I just thought that's the coolest thing, right? Like, to see all that success, and then you're like, I'm gunning for you, number 127. You know what I mean? I'm going to be 127. Or like, and that's just the power of an idea put into your head and then doing the work, right? It sounds like that's what you're doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, he has a way.
Yeah, definitely.
I probably should stop telling other people's stories. Hey, do you have any kids that like officiate in PA? Is that a thing? Like, is there a program for high schoolers to get involved in officiating? Do you know?
No, not at this point that I know of. That's something, as a At some point in my life, I would like to do officiating, just doing youth tournaments starting out.
You're pretty busy though.
Because I think that that's important. I think. Yeah. I mean, obviously, right now I'm busy, but at some point, I'd like to do that. I'd like to referee on the weekends a little bit, just to give back. But again, I think that's another thing that's important. We need to find people that are willing to do it. But there's always that saying, "Parents ruin everything," right? So.
No,
hopefully we get better at that, through things like this.
Well, hopefully that's the plan. That's what we're doing. But you know what to say about plans. Do you have an opinion or any thoughts?
On
your video cut out.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Huh.
There you go. Cool.
That's
an easy edit, bro. Okay, I'm gonna start over with this question so it'll be even easier. Why do you think there's so one of the reasons that we're running into an issue with officials is a lot of them were the same age. Like there's this golden era where people would become officials, and because they weren't going to go on to compete, or maybe they coached and then they're done coaching because life changes, so they became officials. Like they wanted to stay involved. And officiating is great because you get to pick which tournaments you want, right? Make a little bit of money. Doesn't seem like that's the case anymore. Why do you think fewer younger people these days and in the early 2000s are entering officiating, or even not looking at it as many people used to?
This is my understanding, and again, I don't know the logistics of it all and things like that, but the pay hasn't changed. That's one thing that obviously needs to change. Not a marketable position. I mean, you have it's not that the kids have changed, but the way we parent, the way that people view the world. We live in a very highly competitive society. It's more competitive than ever before, in my opinion, because of the use of social media.
Mm-hmm.
We want instant gratification. We live in a society where if I pay $75 for a tournament, I better get something out of it. It's not, I paid this much money to come here and my kid went on too and we get absolutely nothing. No, I want something. But that's the thing about the sport of wrestling that's makes it hard, is that you go to these lotto tournaments, no matter what you pay, you go 0-2, you're not getting a participation trophy.
All right. You know what the solution to that is? Don't go 2 and skidoo,
Yeah, right. But you have the marketing is a big thing. I mean, you go on Instagram, you can find youth wrestlers who parents market them.
Yeah,
at this young of age,
and it's only going to get more intense with national image and likeness.
Right,
that's the smart long-term play right now. Build your brand while you're 7.
Right.
Okay.
So
keep going.
The competitiveness is a factor. So if you're a person that's very competitive, and that ref interpretation of a bad call, whether I'll say it's a bad call, but it might have been the right call. But my view of it, it was a wrong call. But from somebody else's view, it was a correct call. Okay? So my kid's wrestling, he makes a bad call, and, this is for whatever, that golden eagle at Tulsa, you get an eagle. And my son gets beat because the referee, made a mistake. but my kid needs that, I'm gonna flip out. And the other thing that has hurt referees, and I think it's a good thing, is the use of technology, the video. It takes away their margin of error. It takes away, the ability of failure. And, that hurts both people. That hurts the referee because they're not in control anymore. And it kind of puts, and it kind of takes away from failure. I mean, obviously, it still can be there, depending who watches the video and how they decide and interpret it. But videos take away a good bit of margin for error. And so if you make a mistake and the video is able to say, look, you made a mistake, it kind of makes you look bad. So it's like, well, we can't hire that person no more. We're not having them back at our tournament. And it could be one mistake. You could make one bad call all day. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Look, I always tell my kids too, when we're at a wrestling tournament, look, each of these refs is going to have probably one really bad call on the day. And it might be in our match. And you know what I'm going to tell you? Better keep wrestling. Because at the end of the day, you quit, that's on you. You can't control what's outside of you, what happens on the outside. You can only control what happens on the inside of that circle. And if you let an outside force dictate the outcome that you had control of, that's on you.
That's awesome, man. All right. I want to talk about one more subject in this section here. And I asked you before to at least consider this, so I'm not blindsiding you here. But if I gave you some homework, you're going to start doing. If people are watching this show, start doing some homework. But it's really easy. Like if you made a commitment for 1 year to do one thing a month, it could be as easy as writing a Facebook post, sharing an article, Instagram tweet, anything as little or as big as you wanted to do to shine a light on the positive side of officiating in general, but specifically our sport, wrestling. Is that something you think you could do? Put in your calendar?
Absolutely. I think that if I had one thing to do, I would start building a committee looking for referees. And I'll tell you what, I would split it up this way. I would have folk style referees and then freestyle and Greco referees.
Well, hey, I want to help you.
Here's why I'm going to say that, because there's people who aren't available in the wintertime as much as they are in the springtime. And if they had one sole focus and one sole purpose, that kind of eliminates margin for error too. We're never going to know. Anytime, like I said, anytime there's human participation, there's always going to be human error. It does not matter. And but if we had a committee that got men and women's referees for folk style, men and women's referees for folk style and Greco, we're better off with officiating, and we become better educated on it. Our coaches become better educated on it, and our wrestlers become better educated on it.
I couldn't agree more. So use me as a resource. I know I'm not a PA guy, but maybe you can make me, connect me with some people. I'll help as much as I can. Still looking to I got some PA officials that are going to be coming on later too. So I think that's a worthy endeavor, and I'd be willing to help if you think
it's like anything. You want to do it right, it's going to take time. Yeah. And it's not an easy thing, but it's the right thing to do. And I think that, personally, as a coach, personally, as a person involved in the sport of wrestling, maybe I haven't taken the time to do that as well.
I don't think most coaches have really. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to be a coach, a a clinician, like, a dad. I mean, we're all wearing multiple hats, right? And so there's only so many hours in the day. And to your point about like, I know a lot of officials that do like baseball, football, like every season they do something else, right? And I think that's awesome. Like if you're going to put in the time to learn all those rule books and learn the mechanics and do it, I think like you said, like you teach people, if you put in the effort and the time, you can be really good at it, right? And someone could argue with me and I'd welcome it. And it wouldn't be an argument, it would just be a discussion. Argument would be a discussion. But like when you can just focus on one thing, like if you could just do one thing really, really well and then manage your work-life balance. But like, you don't have to split your time learning 3 rule books, Greco, freestyle, folk style. If you could just say, I want to be a Greco official, I want to be the best, and my goal is to officiate an international tournament in 5 years. That's a lot easier, smaller bites, right, than getting good at all 3.
Well, see, I think that's another thing that has happened. So you just made a perfectly good point. Why should a person have to referee so many models of sports to be able to make a good income? Why couldn't we pay them a good amount to just focus on one? Because then I think that you get more referees out in every sport instead of them trying to learn multiple rules, and also it helps out with family time. If I'm a referee that has to do multiple sports to be able to make a gap in my income, why shouldn't I be able to do that in one winter and then be done and have time with the rest of my family in the springtime and fall instead of trying to focus? So that comes back to, and when you pay people more, you get the better employees.
Yeah, you definitely do. I'm speaking with 3 Super 32 employees, referees today, officials. And so I want to talk about 2 things that you touched on there. The folks that I mentioned that are doing multiple sports, most of them have retired. And so this is their way that they stay in it. And it's more of like a passion. Like they know they're not going to get rich. It's probably, I don't want to put words in any of their mouths. It's probably supplemental income. But from the paying of the official side and something, tie it back to something else you had said earlier, I get to help out at a whole bunch of wrestling tournaments a year. Pre-COVID, I did 19 and 16 weekends, right? So I'm helping out at these tournaments. And the thing is they know that they want the best officials. This organization, so Ohio Athletic Committee, they want the best officials because they know that the better officials are going to make the event smoother and better for everyone. The problem is when you pay you want to pay them fair for their time because they deserve it, right? Their skill set is worth it. But like, where does that extra money come from? Like, do you charge more for the people that enter? Because then that parent that said, hey, if I pay $75, I want to leave with a singlet or something, right? So it's this balancing of the give and take, right? You have to charge your gate, which could either go to the organization doing it, or maybe it goes to the school hosting it as a fundraiser. So that's the tough part. And I don't think anyone's figured it out, because I'm not sure there is a solution, because you're either going to hurt the consumer on the front end financially, sort of, right? Not hurt. You're going to create more friction there, or, you're going to hurt the officials. Hurt is not the right word, which I think we're saying is by not paying them what you wish you could pay them. So it's a it's a balancing act. Someone way smarter than me can figure that out.
Agreed.
Okay. I want to talk about this, and then I'm going to let you go because taking up a lot of your time, and Luke, I need you, man. But let's talk about Fraser High School. They're Commodores, right?
Yeah, we're Commodores.
All right. Is there what's that?
Save our ship is what the
Save our ship. Okay.
Yeah, save the ship or something like that. Commodore Perry.
Commodore Perry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's related to Commodore Perry.
Yeah, I think that's how it came up. So actually, there's the school was named after a woman who endowed money to it. This is my understanding, and if I'm wrong on this,
It's okay.
I apologize to the people of
I bet you no
Perryopolis.
one Googles it, but I want to hear it.
There's the school was endowed by a lady from her family. When she passed away, she gave money, and it's named after her last name. The town's pretty interesting. All the street names are like Constitution or Washington Street. All, during those colonial times. It's a pretty neat place. It's a charming little town that's getting new growth. The people there are incredible. It's a older town that is going to get some revitalizing. I feel it's going to boom. It's going to grow here in the next couple years. Again, there's two things that people look at when you become new parents and you look at schools. You look at the education, and then you look at the athletics. Can my son or daughter be successful here in their given sport? And we want people. We're not far from the city of Pittsburgh. We're on the outskirts.
So you're not far from Lake Erie then?
Lake Erie is about 2.5 hours.
Okay, but it's still close enough because Commodore Perry, he patrolled Lake Erie. You're a history teacher.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how they came up with it.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you the story? I'm geeking out here. You're a history guy. You like this.
Yeah.
So I live on the shores of Lake Erie in Erie County, Sandusky, Ohio. Okay, America's rock and roller coaster.
Lake Huron.
Yeah. Oh no, Lake Huron is bigger. We are the smallest of the Great Lakes, but we're still great. But there's an island in Lake Erie, and people don't know this, but during the Civil War, Lake Erie was actually a huge, big part of the North winning the Civil War. To the fact that captured Confederates, it would take up north to Sandusky and boat them out about hour-long boat ride, but they're slow boats, so it's not that far. And they put the Confederates on this island, lock them up. And Commodore Perry won the Battle of Lake Erie, and his saying is, "Don't give up the ship." So, hey, pick him up, man. Is he right there?
Yeah, he's right here. Say hi. Say hi.
Hey, Luca.
Yeah, he's right here. No, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's
There's
really
a
cool.
memorial. It's called Perry's Monument. Okay, cool. Awesome.
Let's check that out.
Yeah, check it out, dude. It's sweet. All right. How long have you guys had a wrestling program then at Fraser?
So the program started 2010. They started a youth wrestling program 2010, and we started a high school program in 2016. I came in as a volunteer coach in 2000. That was in February of 2017. Then I became the head coach in the following year. Well, 2017, but it was in the fall.
So I'm not a math guy, but so like that's 5 seasons then, right? Or is it 6?
It will technically be 6 this year, but this will be my 5th year as head coach.
Okay, so your 5th year as head coach, and you have had 2 state champs now?
Correct.
Thane and Rune, right?
Correct.
And they're brothers?
Yes.
Like 4 years apart, or what? Like?
Yeah. One is entering his sophomore year of college, and the other is entering his sophomore year of high school.
Is Thane wrestling right now?
He just had shoulder surgery. He's probably going to redshirt this year. So, he's training. Obviously, Rune's getting ready to wrestle. We're headed down to Super 32 next couple weeks.
Hey,
Be a
send me
good
some
one.
pictures, man. I'm having some of those officials on. I'd love to, if you're there, take some pictures. So where did this monster come from named Rune? First of all, when the parents named those kids, they had to know something, or they just got really lucky.
You know, they come. I think their names are like Viking names. I
Yeah,
think
like
that's where they
Nordic,
got
like yeah, Nordic kind of, yeah.
them. They're just hardworking kids. They got a lot of potential, and you know, they were always on the cusp. They never won a Pennsylvania junior state title or anything like that. The highest he ever placed was when he was in 8th grade. He took 5th. Rune ended up winning at the end in 7th and 8th grade. 2 Pennsylvania junior wrestling. Just hardworking kids. You know,
How
great
rare is that?
attitude.
How rare is that in PA? I mean, that's an accomplishment.
I'm not exactly sure. I can't, you know, speak on
Like
that.
the DeSanto, Lee, Oliver, any of those guys pull that off?
Yeah, winning PJWs.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys have. You know, I can't really speak on that because I really don't know that
fine.
offhand.
I just like hearing, man.
So,
I like greatness when I see it, and I like to talk about it. So last year, his freshman, you guys are 2A, right? Double A.
yes.
72, 172. He won 9-7, right? I think in the finals. Senior.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that guy was a senior, and he's wrestling at George Mason, right?
Yeah, somewhere.
It's George Mason. I looked it up. I cheated.
Okay.
Okay. So, excuse me. So I read this in an article, and I need to clarify. Did Rune really say this? Because you never know with the media these days, right? So this is a quote. So when I quote, so this is right behind in the hallway, like before semifinals. You're back in the hallway, probably getting ready before the match. And he said, if I end up winning, he's gonna hug you. You said that to him, right? And he said, if you do that, I'm gonna throw you. And you guys just started laughing. And you're like, and he says, I'm serious, dude. Like, or I'm being serious. So that really happened.
Correct. That really happened.
Like that. Just like cool as the other side of the pillow.
Yeah. Yeah, you just don't never none of that, you know, that's the type of relationship I have with the young man. I've been around him a lot since he was in 6th grade. You know, I know what kind of like makes him tick, kind of what gets on his nerves, or you know. Yeah, I think that's what happens when you develop good relationships with your athletes. You know what makes them tick, and you try to do that with every athlete. You know, you try to find their interests, what's going on in their lives, and be involved. You know, obviously, I didn't think that it would be extravagant as it was. I mean, because I ain't gonna lie, that's like something you see on a USA Wrestling on the cover.
Oh,
I mean, it's a
he feet to
beautiful
back
five.
you. No, it's something that yeah. I mean, feet to back
And you know, it's a beautiful 5. And what people don't here's the other thing is people don't realize this, but he doesn't wrestle no freestyle or Greco.
Yeah, he told me that.
Never done it in his life. I mean, he's wrestled for. I think he goes to this freestyle thing once a year with his club. They do it for like a month. They do freestyle, then that's it. But he's never done Greco in his life.
Yeah.
And he has like the ability to be very good at either of them.
Well, he's got body control just from that throw alone, and how he moves people out of position, and then he gets into his attacking position. Like, that's hard to teach.
Oh, absolutely. It was a thing, you know, if you look at that, if you were to say, look, this is I don't know what a perfect throw looks like, but from that picture in my eyes, that's about as close as you can get. And then this is a guy who doesn't train any Greco whatsoever. He just has a feel for his body. You know, he's never really learned. I mean, I guess somebody's taught him how to throw a little bit, not me. That's just an area that is kind of out of my comfort zone there. Maybe it's something I need to get better at. But for somebody to teach him how to throw a little bit, and for him to never do Greco and never really involve himself in freestyle, to do what he did, and people will be like, wow. To me, that's pretty incredible. And I also wonder, how much better would he be if he trained them other two styles as hard as he does folk style?
The more I'm hearing from people, dude, from my understanding, I never wrestled Greco. I did a little bit of freestyle. But the more I'm understanding, man, is like Greco has a lot more benefits than we give it credit for in the United States. Like, just to be able to hand fight like that and get in positions and stand straight up like that, there's a lot that could be applied to freestyle, folk style for sure.
Absolutely.
Hey, man, this has been awesome. Almost 2 hours. I want to leave with this, because that quote, when I was reading it last night, and then I was like thinking about it, and I was prepping, I'm like, it's because of freshman. And I saw his picture at the 50-yard line. I think he just got honored last week at the football game, right?
Correct.
But it reminded me of something I know and I see on Instagram from Wrestling Mindset a lot. And also, I can't remember who it was. He came into our room probably 2 years ago, talked to our team. And he's, talking about like fear and how that's actually a good thing. It's why humans are existing today. And then he said the whole eyes in the front like the hunt. And I was like, if there's a kid with his eyes in the front, man, that's it right there. So that's, I guess, my way of saying thank you for your time. I'm watching from Ohio, man. Positive dude. I like it. I like when I get to especially start my day with positive, hopefully carry that into the day. And again, we'll talk a little bit offline, so stick around. But when I say something, I mean it. So if I can do anything to help, just even start something with officials in PA, and we could do that together, that'd be something I think worthy of my time. I don't know what I could do, but I'll try. Sound good?
Sound good, sir. You have a great day.
Hey, stick on for a second. I promise I'll let you go here shortly, okay?
All right, sounds good.